Welcome back, duelists. Are crazy boss monsters with insane effects locking down your board just becoming a little bit too much to handle? Or maybe you're just looking for a little bit of extra spice to put into your side deck at going against the mirror match. Well, you've come to the right place, because that card you're looking for is Ghost Reaper and Winter Cherries. Now, Ghost Reaper and Winter Cherries is a card that has been out for quite some time. It's an amazing hand trap, and only up until recently have decks been really utilizing it. So you might ask, why would you run it now compared to, in the past where a lot of players have not run it? Well, the simple answer to that is it requires little setup. So with Ghost Reaper and Winter Cherries, if your opponent controls more monsters than you do as a quick effect, you can discard it from your hand. Then you select a card out of your extra deck, you reveal it, and then, simply put, if your opponent has any of those cards in their extra deck as the one you revealed, you banish all copies from their extra deck. That's right, not only do you just get rid of all copies, but they don't go to the grave, they actually get banished. And as you know, going into the future of Yu-Gi-Oh!, banishing your opponent's cards is far better than sending them to the grave and having them activate a plethora of effects that will ultimately be your demise. So, again, since you have to have the similar copies as your opponent, having this in the mirror match is extremely important. It is an amazing card for the mirror match. And again, if you're going second, this is the card you want to put in the mirror match, since now with the modern Yu-Gi-Oh, hitting out their starters or their boss monsters, whichever card is the best card hit because it's the mirror match, what would hurt you. If you are able to do that, especially turn one against certain decks, it will ultimately shut them down and sometimes be a complete blowout. A lot of decks will actually scoop if the right card gets hit out of their extra deck. So that's why we're seeing a huge rise in Ghost Reaper and Winter Cherry play. And on top of that is, even if you're not playing a perfect mirror match, certain decks like Fluwonder Breeze and Labyrinth can actually side deck Ghost Reaper and Winter Cherries and then stuff either their extra deck or maybe even a copy or two in their side deck of powerful boss monsters or even extra deck starters that they know they're going to be playing against in the tournament. So whether it's at locals or you're actually going to a big event and you're going to be playing against certain decks and you have extra room in the extra deck, and then you have some cards in the side where you can put Ghost Reaper at, you will easily shut down a bunch of decks who will not be expecting this. And then on top of all these reasons, if you are a budget player, Ghost Reaper and Winter Cherries can be a really good card, assuming the cards you want to hit out are not expensive themselves. But there are so many copies of Ghost Reaper and Winter Cherries at this point, you don't have to blow the budget, you don't have to get the ultis, you don't even have to get the secrets. There are so many copies like golds and just some hollows that you can actually get a little bit of bling for your buck. So definitely go with those if you are the budget player. But I definitely say Ghost Reaper and Winter Cherries is the card that we'll be seeing used going into the future. That being said, what cards do you hit with Ghost Reaper and Winter Cherries? And I just want to bring up right on this page the first big three we're going to be talking about, and then we're going to go over a bunch of others, especially in the mirror match options. But right now, I think one of the number one cards we're going to be seeing hit is Kashtira Arise Heart. Since it is a walking macrocosmo, and then it has quite amazing effects on top of that, Kashtira Arise Heart is going to be seeing play heavily in the upcoming format, and hitting this out is a great target. Now, that being said, some players can actually argue that the Kashtira Shangri-La is the card you actually want to hit out, since this is when his effect activates, it locks down your board, and then after his effect activates, you can link or you can exceed Kashtira Rise Heart onto any of your Kashtira monsters. So if you hit out the Shangri-La that's preventing its effect from being activated, you ultimately might even block out a Kashtira Rise Heart being summoned, since it actually has to take 3 level 7s to exceed into it normally, thus being a lot of resources just to lose the Rise Heart on the next turn. And if you're feeling real gutsy, you always can hit out the Mind Hacker as well, or if you're just afraid of your deck being banished. So these are the Kashtira targets. What are some other targets that we're actually looking forward to hitting out? And again, in the mirror match, these are really good, and that is the Tearlament matchup. Okay, so not only do we have Tearlament Kitkalos that if you hit out with the cherries, which some players have actually already been doing in the matchup, that severely hinders that Tearlament starter. Okay, we know how much they love to have Kitkalos and how amazing that is for their first turn. And now, rather that you don't want to hit the Kitkalos, or maybe Kitkalos ends up getting hit like in the OCG, we do have other options such as the Kaleido Heart. Kaleido Heart is an amazing card that once that's hit, that's a lot of resource loss for them. Or maybe again, you are in the mirror match, okay, and you don't want them hitting you with the Abyss Dweller. You can Ghost Reaper them on their turn if you're going second, hit, target your Abyss Dweller, that will banish their Abyss Dweller, and then best part is you keep your own Abyss Dweller for future use, and we know that is huge going into that mirror match. Next up, and these are really nice because not only are there their own decks, you might mirror match them, but these cards get played in a variety of decks as well, and that is none other than the Sprite package, okay? Now, whether you want to hit out Gigantic Sprite, maybe you want to Nibiru the opponent and you don't want them locking you out, maybe you want to hit the Sprite Elf because, let's be real, that card is insane, or you want to hit their starter, which can be the Sprite Sprint, setting up the Nimble plays, or even burning you with that Scatter Shot. All are amazing targets and all get played in a variety of decks. So honestly, having to stuff these in some of your extra deck just to side deck the Ghost Reaper and Winter Cherries, a lot of decks already will be playing these cards. So just being able to go Ghost Reapers in the side deck will be very, very beneficial, especially going into the future. So that being said, we're going to go over some miscellaneous cards and just really good targets all together. But if you're getting anything from this video or get anything from any of the videos or just enjoy coming back to the channel, please do consider supporting the channel by smashing that subscribe button. Our numbers have been shooting up and I very much appreciate the feedback. If there are any cards we don't cover on this list and you want to mention, do comment them down below because there is honestly just... there's an unlimited amount of cards that you can be calling for Ghost Reaper and Winter Cherries, some that probably aren't even printed yet, okay? So that being said, what are other cards that you want to hit out with Ghost Reaper and Winter Cherries? And the first one I would like to cover are some of the boss monsters that you will be seeing in a lot of decks, a lot of play. One of them being Baron de Fleur. Not only is this an amazing boss monster in Sword Soul, but you can actually see plenty of Tearlament players going into Baron de Fleur, and then just if you play it and your opponent play it, hit that card out if you're afraid of that Omni Negate, and you will be glad that you don't have to clear over this boss monster. After that, we see certain decks playing Mech Knight Crusadia Avramax, rather that being set up with an IP Masquerena or just going into a normal because it is a wall. Hitting that out will detriment a lot of decks, but again, I understand a lot of decks might not be using that in the side deck unless you're mirroring. But one of the main cards that we're seeing tons of play is the Divine Arsenal Sky Thunder, okay? So if you hit out Zeus, that is going to be insane, and honestly, Zeus is a card that you can see coming from a mile away. They have to battle with the Exceed monster, and 9 times out of 10, you're like, all right, I'm getting Zeused after this. So if you let them perform that battle, you hit out the Zeus with the Ghost Reaper and Winter Cherries. Now they're stuck with an Exceed they definitely did not intend having on their board. Other options are actually some floodgates, whether that be the number 41 Baguska, Terribly Tired to Peer. A lot of players are getting tired of actually getting locked by the Baguska, so maybe you want to hit it out of the opponent's extra deck and keep yours as well. That's definitely a target. And another one is the Lingaribo. And a lot of players might be wondering, well, what's up with that? Well, right now, with the Corruptor Ibli, a lot of players are using Ibli to go against the Kashtira matchup. So once it's summoned to their board, they're locked out of multiple monsters, and then they can't actually special summon their Kashtiras through their own effects. And the only out they really have is linking it off for a Lingaribo. So if you know you're going to be using Ibli against your opponent, definitely get a Cherries with the Lingaribo in there, and make sure that they cannot get rid of the Ibli, thus fully shutting down the opponent's deck. And last but not least, some on the list would be the Link 1 engines, whether that be Dark Infant Ignitor or Striker Dragon. If you are ever finding yourself having problems against these matchups, hitting out these Link 1 monsters is insane, because they are just important starters for the decks that they rely on. And if you hit these out, or even how Prank Kids have the Link 1, if you hit out any of the Link 1 cards, even Trap Trick Sarah, this will significantly hinder the decks that you're going against, and sometimes it will be a complete blowout where the opponent will actually scoop. Now again, these are a variety of cards that you can be hitting out with Ghost Reaper and Winter Cherries. There will be cards in the future you can hit out with Ghost Reaper and Winter Cherries, and a lot of players are going to be using this in the Kashtira matchup. But if you are having additional issues with the Kashtira matchup, do consider checking out the video above. It is how to beat Kashtira, and there is an amazing amount of cards in there that you can fit into the side deck to counter Kashtira. So if you're enjoying any of this, guys, do consider commenting and subscribing to the channel. We'll see you next time. Have a good night. Suck it, nerds.